Welcome to the Focused and Fearless podcast, the show designed to explore how you can step into powerful self-leadership and stop settling for less in your life, business, health, and wealth. I'm your host, Heather Angel, and as a certified energy practitioner, coach, and online business consultant with over a decade of experience, you can expect expansive, honest, and enlightening conversations about what it really takes to create the changes in your life and business that right now may just feel completely out of reach. Thank you for choosing to invest in yourself by listening to this episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. This is possibly one of my favorite ever conversations, not just on the podcast, but in my whole life. The joyful, positive energy that surrounded this whole discussion with today's guest was just flowing through from start to finish. Today's guest is a spiritual guide, healer, and teacher, Joan Buckley. Now, I want you to go into this episode with your mind open, your heart open, because we delve into the whole world of running your business while connecting with your spirit guides for support. Joan is passionate about helping all of us awaken to the amount of support that is around us. And this conversation went in all the directions. If you've been with me for a while on this podcast, you'll know I like to go down a few different rabbit holes, and I'm all about blending the masculine and the feminine and the divine and everything that can help us on our journey to getting the life and the business that we want. So without further ado, I introduce you to the gorgeous Joan Buckley. Joan, welcome to the Focused and Fearless podcast, my lovely.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
It's genuinely one of the conversations I've been looking forward to the most. Ever since we connected, I've just been like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to share this with everybody, because we are going to be talking, as I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about spirit teams and how everyone can actually connect with the support that's all around them. But before we dive into all the juiciness, I would love for you to share how you went from busy corporate life to this whole other space that you're in now.
Yes. Well, my background is in corporate. I went to college, did the traditional route, and I was in corporate until I was 34, I think. But the year or two before I finished there, I was getting restless. There was a restlessness building for the last couple of years. And up to that, I loved it. I really enjoyed that career. But I started getting restless that it felt something was missing, or I should be doing something else. There was just that feeling deep within. And I had my second son. I was out on maternity leave, and I just felt I couldn't go back and do it again. And as luck would have it, just about a week before I was due to go back, the company decided to relocate, and I got a redundancy, which allowed me to stay at home for a while. So I was looking around, and initially I actually tried to set up a similar business at home so I'd have a lot more flexibility. And I spent, I think, nearly a year setting up a similar business at home. And I got to the end of it when it was time to look for clients, and I goes, I just don't want to do this anymore. And it literally was such a visceral feeling right through my body that I said, okay, I got to stop and look at something else. So initially I started doing workshops on a Saturday morning to have a break from the kids. This was actually how I ended up in spiritual and energetic work, was doing workshops for a break, for time for myself at the weekends. And I ended up at a Reiki workshop. And I was just fascinated. I'd never heard of Reiki. I hadn't gone for a Reiki session before it. Everyone in the room knew all this information. And I was kind of going, this is fascinating. So I started investigating and going further on my own. I went to an angel workshop and something clicked. And I said, okay, yes, this is what I'm meant to be doing. But it was a lot of trial and error from knowing that it was time, it was time to finish that career and move to the other one. And then it was a process of slowly training, trying, and there's a huge personal development piece in changing careers, because I was so ingrained in the traditional route of, you have your business, you'd go to work, you come home, the weekends are yours. And when you have your own business, it's so flexible, it's so movable. There's no days that you could say is definitely not a work day anymore. But it was a big process of transition. But the personal development for me was the piece I wasn't expecting. I had to go so deep in myself and face what I believed was regular paths and, just judgments about alternative types of lifestyle and how I could fit that in. And obviously I have 3 children now. So I was working around family, and my husband has a very busy career. So there was a lot of juggling in the early days. There was a lot of juggling.
Yeah, there really is. And I think the way you describe that, sort of the word you used was restlessness. And I think that's just so on point, because it is that. And I have this so many times with the clients that come to me, and this is exactly my experience as well. Had children, went, kind of. I mean, to be honest, in every job, I'd never normally last more than 2 years, because I'm like, feel there's something. And then you just fill it with the traditional, like, I'll just get a different job. But yeah, I really resonate with that. And I know a lot of the listeners will, because it is that kind of inner, I'm being pulled somewhere, but I don't know where. And it's so fascinating that you did set up, a business. And then by the time you got to it, you're like, nah.
Yeah. And I put so much effort into it, but I thought the problem was being in an office and the craziness, because it was a high stressful job. And I was in it 13 years. I had no longing to leave that job until the last couple of years, but it was so busy. I was always rushing to get out in the morning, rushing to get home to the kids. I just spent all my time rushing. They'd go to bed and I'd get my laptop back out. So I knew something had to change, but I thought it was the work life to home life needed to change. But when I got there a year later and realized, no, there's something that wakens deep within when you're ready for change. And it's so subtle at the start that it's easy to misdirect it. It's really, really subtle. Yeah.
It's real. And actually, that's something I'd love to explore a little bit more, because I'm sure there are people listening, because my audience is all on different stages and paths. And I'm sure there's some people going, well, I'm recognizing this restless, not really quite sure bit. And you're right. I think the personal development part of setting up a business, none of us expect that. I mean, I didn't even know what personal development was when I first started business. You get recommended a book, and that was it for me. I was recommended this book, and it was about what was it called? Miracle Morning by Hal Robb, which is a beautiful book, and it was the best thing that could have landed in my world at the time. And I was like, oh my goodness. And that was it. that was the start. So for you, obviously you went to these different workshops, and you said about Reiki that I didn't know what Reiki was either 10 years ago. And it was the angels thing that sort of made that click. So for you, how did it go from kind of, oh, hang on, angels, this feels good, to the personal development journey? What was that sort of path looking like for you?
I think they ran in parallel, because for me, one of the challenges I had at the start was feeling strange and weird doing this work. I'm from a very traditional setting, quite a religious setting, and all my friends were techies. That was the area I was working. So it was so outside everything and everyone I knew that I had a lot of fears and worries and judgments about myself, about stepping out into something completely different. So, like I said, I went doing angel work, and I went to a lot of workshops in that field. And a lot of it was about clearing those fears, clearing the judgment I had of myself, or the expectation of judgment from other people. And a lot of those workshops took me deeper into fear. And then it became much more than just the fear of judgment. It started to go much deeper into how I looked at myself, how I saw myself. I was quite surprised at some of the judgments and the fears I had deep within that were holding me back and blocking me. And what I have found is, initially I thought I could do a year or two of personal development and be done, which sounds so funny looking back on it, because it's such a lifetime journey. But what I find is, you take a step, something rises, whether it's a fear or a worry or a block of some sort. You deal with that, you take the next step, and the next one rises. So it's a lovely journey in hindsight. You get steps as opposed to having to do the whole thing together. In college, you do your course and you have your qualification at the end of it. And it's a start and a finish. And I think as someone who likes structure, that was the hardest part for me, is saying, well, when is this journey going to be done? Or when I have this piece complete? And now I sit happily in that it's a lifetime journey and it's not going to complete, but it's just taking small steps. Because if you dive all into the personal development journey and want to do everything together, it's overwhelming and the body gets overwhelmed. The fear will just stop you in your tracks. So it's taking little steps, looking at something today, maybe read a book, do some of the exercise out of that book, maybe do a workshop, do some a little bit more, but take it slowly. I remember rushing through at the start and it's not helpful.
And again, that's so how we're trained to be. When you're a high achieving, high performing person, you're like, right, self-development, I'm going to nail that this year. That's my thing. I'm going to do the self-development. I'm going to be this complete packaged person by the end of it. Great. And then I'll do the next thing. And yeah, like you said, you kind of go, oh no. And I've had many a conversation with friends and colleagues where I'm like, oh, next level, new devil. And I'm like, here we go again.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
and it's
right.
still,
yeah.
The one thing I do find is it gets so much easier. So if someone's early on in the stage, in the depths of it, because those first few big fears and blocks are usually the boulders in the middle of the road. My first book was Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. That was the one that triggered something new in me. But she talks about you get the boulders, and as you go further down the line, the boulders are getting smaller, and eventually they just become gravel. And that is so true. They get smaller and smaller. So if you're at the initial stage where the big boulders, you're trying to get around those ones, those are the biggest. Every step makes it a little bit easier. You move faster around the next boulder, a little bit faster, and they get smaller.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful way of putting it. And I think it's interesting because, yes, the boulders get smaller. I think the awareness level becomes so much greater because at that very beginning stage, you're like, why do I feel so bad? And, you're still judging yourself. There's still this all negative talk. And, I know when I sort of found angels and crystals and things, it was, I used to pull angel cards all the time, which I still love, but I was very much like, somebody give me the answer because I can't handle this.
Yes, and you pull 5 cards in a row, hoping one will give the different answer,
I was like, what am I supposed to do? Whereas I think when you are a bit further along down the path, you just have that, it's almost like you sort of see out of your body and go, oh, look what you just did. That's interesting. Or look where that thought just came from. I think that's such a good analogy with the boulders. So I hope that gives hope to anyone listening who's like, I'm up against a mountain of a boulder right now. So you do get through them and it does get easier.
You do. And you get tools that suit you because there's a ridiculous amount of information out there. It's overwhelming at this stage. We needed more information out there on the web and available to people without them having to, go into big courses and stuff for us. But it can be a little bit overwhelming now, the absolute volume. So over time, you find the ones that work best for you. And then that makes it easier as well.
Oh, I completely agree. Journaling is the one I have a bee in my bonnet about the most. It's the most simple practice in the world. But if you Google it, you can absolutely convince yourself it's the most complex practice in the world. I'm like, nope, pad and paper and a pen. Like that's literally all you need. So you're quite right. It can feel very overwhelming. You can end up flitting between lots of things, but it's also quite fun and experimental to try these different things. And like you said, you do find the ones that work for you. So you've gone through this, transition, and where did you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, this personal development journey I'm going on, this is my calling now. This is where I'm taking a business to become out of it as well.
When I was doing the angel work, I started training in angel therapy. So that was my first step into this field. I started taking clients for angel therapy. I started teaching angel therapy then. And that kind of got me working with people in this field. And I loved it so much. When I put people into it, then it clicked. When I was doing it at my home, I loved it, but I didn't see the bigger picture of it. But when I was inside with a group of people, I suddenly felt how I could hold the space, how I could help people. And it solidified something. So those steps are needed, I think, to really know, because you can train forever, but you don't know until you're in front of someone doing it, whether it's right. For example, I did Reiki and I did IET, and at one stage I thought both of them. But my love was the angels. So I let Reiki go. It's not that I didn't use it myself or anything, but I left it go because it wasn't mine to teach. And I knew that once I sat in front of someone. So there's an experiential piece needed to really step into something new in whatever way. I mean, the first couple I did, I just gathered a couple of friends, or I asked friends to find a friend to come and listen or to work with me for an afternoon, just to feel into it and get that ping inside that, there's different ones and you just know.
Yes, absolutely. And I think do you remember the time scale? Because I know, again, a lot of my listeners are the high achievers. They're like, right, well, they're probably like, right, where's the steps? Like, give me the steps to do this. So do you know what that sort of time scale was of exploring the Reiki? Because you said you can train in all the things for all the time. But,
yes.
Do you know sort of how long that was that you...
I did it slowly because I had 2 toddlers in the house. So this was working around a lot of busyness. Yeah. So I think once I did the angel work was early on, literally within a year of deciding I was going to do this. I had my full angel training done. Yeah. But I started doing a workshop, maybe 1 or 2 in that first year, literally at that level, because there was so much work on myself to do. Once I booked one, I used to go into absolute panic. Then I'd have to do all the pieces to clear that, to settle into myself, to look at, well, why was I panicking? Why was it so hard for me? I came from a job where I was always in front of people and talking to people and leading meetings. This wasn't a new space for me, but it was a new topic. So I worked slowly through that first year because there was a lot every time I tried to step out. And then it speeded up and it also changed direction. I think that's the other big piece I found is when we make a change, we often get the initial nudges that will help us get there. And I thought I had that set up. I was teaching IT and suddenly in my meditation one morning, I heard that piece is done now. And I was going, you've got to be kidding me after all that. And it's not that I didn't work with the angels anymore. I do, but it evolved into its next step, which was more workshops than teaching people angel therapy. I stopped doing one-on-one angel sessions and I started doing more workshops, which branched into my membership program. And it went that way ahead. So I became more someone that was helping people to connect rather than doing healing sessions. And I include the healing in that work as opposed to it being the standalone item that it was for a while.
Okay. And that's the thing, isn't it? These things do evolve. Yes. But that can also be uncomfortable when we're used to be like, no, I've set my path. You can't tell me I've got to go left now, or like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it causes such I found that one was almost as tough as the starting point. When I heard that nudge saying, okay, that piece is done, I was thinking, I thought this was the piece. I honestly thought at that stage, once I had set that piece up, that this is what I was going to be doing long term. But in hindsight, it was a stepping stone. It was, my internal self, my angels, taking me that far to get all I needed on that path and then expanding it. Because if I heard at the start how much I was going to be doing, it would have been overwhelming. And that is the thing. We get the steps we need in front of us and they just keep growing.
Yes. And it's so true. When my first business in 2015 was a wedding planning business, and I have a very similar story of you. I had my second child, then got made redundant. I was like, brilliant, because I had no intention of going back. And thought, and it's funny how, again, I don't know whether you found this, but I didn't think, oh, well, great, I'll just be at home and be a mum and take a break, which in hindsight might have been a good idea with 2 babies at home. The first thought was like, well, I've got to do something. I'm going to set up my own business. Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to stay at home part-time, but I wanted something else part-time because I need something. I need to put my energy towards something, or I'd probably overwhelm the kids trying to make them my project. So it's better for me to have something extra to do because I do need an outlet. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's I mean, I always knew, even after having the first child, I was like, okay, I love this, but my brain needs somewhere else to go on occasion. And I set up the wedding business, and within a year, I knew this wasn't the thing I was supposed to do. Teaching actually always came through because I didn't even know there was coaches. I didn't know there was coaching was a thing. I thought they were football coaches. I didn't know coaching was even a thing. And I set up a wedding planning business within a year, knew it was wrong, but obviously I'd worked so hard and I'd already started doing my coaching training, and the angel cards kept telling me, I was like, what do I need to do? And they were basically like, sell the wedding business, sell the wedding business, sell the wedding business. And I was like, no, my ego was like, no, I'm going to put my foot down on this and I'm not going to do it. And then lo and behold, once I finally made that decision, I was like, I want to go all in with the coaching. That's where my heart is. When people were ringing up for wedding appointments, my heart just sank. I was like, oh, I thought you were going to be a coaching client. And I was like, I was just turning away business left, right, and centre. I was like, I'm booked. So when I finally said, right, okay, I'm listening, I'm going to let go, I sold it within 24 hours for the price that I wanted. And I was like, okay, thanks, angels. I heard you. I feel like almost like the universe was like, finally, woman, for goodness sake, go quick, sell it before she has a chance to change her mind.
I do. And there is times we want different guidance. We just want different guidance. And yes, I've been there where I really pushed. And what I found was when I didn't want to let the teaching the angel therapy go, was suddenly people weren't turning up. The last run of it I had one person, and that was 6 days training. So I went through it with one person. I was going, okay, now I've heard you me that, it's just not going to happen anyway. So
yeah, it's so fascinating. And I'm sure the listeners are probably like, oh yeah, I've had that before as well. So with the work you do now, something that the key thing that really fascinated me, now you've got your business and you've got your membership and workshops and things. How do you work with the divine and with the angels to help support you do your work even better and actually grow your business? Because that was what really, the term spirit team is what jumped off the page when I was like, oh, I've got to speak to this lady. I love the idea of having a spirit team. And for all of the solo entrepreneurs listening to this who are just doing everything by themselves, this is great. You don't have to pay them. So
no, not at all. Thank you at the end of the day is all they ask for.
A little bit of gratitude. So how did that evolve for you in your business?
So the way I explain a spiritual team in the easiest way is I think of it as, imagine you're an oak tree. And this lifetime is one little branch, one tiny branch in that whole magnificent oak tree. But we pop into this world and we forget the oak tree exists. Now, the oak tree is your higher self, your I am presence, your angels, your guides, your star family. It's expansive beyond anything our human mind can remember. So when you imagine you're just that branch, then it's lonely, and decisions and trying to figure out what to do, they can be so difficult. But when we start moving out and remembering, oh, I have an angel, I have a guide, I have my own higher self, the rest of my soul is up there, we have extra information coming in. And I think in business, that is so valuable because we're always short of information. We're going, which would be the best decision here now? And we have two reasonably good choices ahead of us. And that's where I find it's so critical when you have two decent choices and you need to make the best one. But what I do myself is I tend to meditate. That's my way. Now, it's not the only way because I love silence. I love to light a candle, sit in my room, connect to my team, and eventually the mind quietens down a little bit. And it takes a bit of time. And I can ask a question, and there's a part of me knows the answer. There's a part of me feels the answer in some way. Now, for some people, they connect walking. It might be you go out for your walk for an hour and you quieten the mind that way and you say, okay, show me the answer. Now, the answer doesn't always come immediately. That's one thing that I have found, and I've had to surrender to it because there's been times the answer has come a couple of weeks later because the circumstances weren't right to give me the answer at the time. And that can be quite challenging. Other times it'll be, you sit in your car and a song comes on the radio and it's the perfect answer, or a book will turn up. But it's really to find the way where you can quieten, whatever that means for you, and ask a question. Now, this takes practice. It's like anything else. If you try and run a marathon and you have never even done 500 meters, it's not going to work. And sometimes people sit down and after a week or two say, oh, this doesn't work for me. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not feeling anything. But it's a practice. It's a muscle you build. You got to remember that branch is out on that oak tree for so long, probably for 30 or 40 years. I was in my mid-30s when I realized all this. So it takes time to allow that expansion. Because imagine if you opened up to that much light, that much energy in one go, it would overwhelm the system. Even physically, your body trying to route that much light through would be overwhelming. So it's slowly finding ways to connect. Stop and breathe. I often suggest people, if they're in a working environment and they need a breather to connect and ask for help, is go to the bathroom, take 3 deep breaths and say, somebody help me please here to figure out what I'm supposed to do today. And something will change.
I love that. And I think just, I could listen to that back again and again and again, because so many things you said are so, so true. And I think it's really important that people understand as well that there will be a way for them, not only to quieten the mind, but also in how they receive the messages. Because I think you said that you kind of, you're kind of somewhere and you're like, oh, yep, I know where that's coming from. Do you ever hear the guidance, or do you get it in other ways as well?
I tend to feel and know. That's my primary way. It's like I hear the feeling rather than hear the words. It's very hard to describe to someone who doesn't receive that way, but it's like I hear the feelings. So I know the answer, and I'm at it so long now, I can really feel the yes and the no. And even in my body, I can feel the yes or no. It's almost like when it's a no, I feel myself pulling back. It's like I want to step back a little, and I'm moving forward when it's a yes. But there's so many ways. Some people, when they practiced, will actually see pictures. They'll see the images. They're very visual in their third eye. And some people are auditory, and they will hear. They will hear the voice of spirit. They will hear it in words the same way as we would. And other people feel and just know. And that's my primary one. Now, I can get tingles. I can get a lot of body sensations as well, hot or cold or a tingly, depending on what the answer is. But it's knowing your own one. When I started this, I wanted the seeing one because I thought that's the coolest one. I'll definitely know. If I see an answer, then I'll definitely know, as opposed to this feeling and knowingness that I was getting. But you have your own way. Everyone has that. And there's more than that. Some people smell. Some people will have a really strong sense of smell. It's an unusual one, but some people have that one. So it goes across the spectrum. It really does. You can get a tingle in one hand, which is your yes. It can be that subtle, which is where the practice comes in again. Time and time and time. Keep asking, keep practicing, keep quietening. The quietening piece is critical. We've such busy lives. There's phones going, there's social media, there's videos, there's telly. We live such busy lives that spirit can't hardly get the voice through in those ones. There needs to be quietness, but how you get that quietness is yourself. And like I said, meditation is my go-to, that really sitting in silence. And then once I'm in there, sometimes like I said, it's the noise, but sometimes I'll pick up my biro and my biro will write. It does it itself. The information just flows onto the page, and I'll read it back after and go, oh, that was really interesting. It's like I don't really understand what's coming out on the page until I finished, and then I'll go back and read. Yeah,
I love that. That's I've definitely had that experience before. And I think what's really important that you mentioned as well, and that the meditation piece, I know that there will be people going already on this, can't meditate, can't do the sitting still, can't do the quiet. And that used to be me. And I have to admit, for me, I used to really struggle with that, but running was my thing. Whenever I had anything on my mind, I was like, right, that's it, trainer's on, I'm off for a run. And I'd come back and I was like, oh, everything's all right with the world now. I figured, look, I would say I figured it out, but it was just, I'd be able to ask the question, like you said, and just the rhythmic of the running, the answer would just come through. And I was like, oh yeah, of course.
And you have to know yourself and what works for you. Another place I get a lot of information is when I'm driving, if the kids aren't in the car, because it's quite monotonous. If you're on a long journey, you're just driving, and the mind can kind of free of the everyday busyness. I have often pulled over to write down something or to take an audio note, because some beautiful idea will pop in. So just find a way that's right for you. There's I don't like rules. I often say that to anyone I'm speaking to about spirituality. I don't like rules because everyone is so unique and everyone is so different, and you just find your own way. You set your intention. I'm open to connecting to my spiritual team. Show me what way is right for me. Guide me to what way will work best. And it'll happen over time. Just keep practicing, because I've seen people say 2 weeks into meditating, this doesn't work for me. And the one thing you have to remember when you start to meditate or you start to connect is the fears and the blocks start to rise, because you've suddenly gone into silence. You've gone into that space, and the parts of you that are very neglected and are not being listened to all start rising up. And that can be overwhelming for someone. And they might say, oh no, that makes me feel worse. And initially it can, because everything's rising, and that's where the personal development steps come in. You need to deal with what's rising, because chances are it's always been there. It's just been silenced and it hasn't had a chance to rise.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I really want to give hope to people that are like, oh, I would like to try meditating. Like I said, I was absolutely, I couldn't do meditating. I had to start small. I was like, right, let's just see if I can sit and not do something for a minute, just for a minute. Let me just see if I can do that. And I got to the stage where I could literally, as soon as I sat down on my meditation cushion, that's it. I was dropped immediately in the zone, and that was fine. But got out of the habit. Things happened, pandemics and homeschooling and such like. So, and now it is something I'm getting back into, because I know how valuable it is. But once again, it's like, if you don't go to the gym for 2 years and then go, oh, I'm just going to go back, you can't lift the same weight.
Yeah. And the other thing I do sometimes, if my mind is so busy that you sit down and it's just like sitting on a hot plate, is I put on a guided meditation and let someone else take me inwards. And that really can get past that initial part of sitting down. And I might do that for 10 minutes. Then I'm in the zone, and I can listen, I can ask questions, I can find that quietness.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I'm going to make sure your meditations are linked up, because there's some that are available from you as well, which just listening to your accent on this podcast, I could listen to you for hours. I'm like, that'd be great. You can take me into the zone. So because you are also, there's a spiritual aspect, and obviously your business is all based on the spiritual. How do you balance? Because this is a conversation I have with a lot of my clients. They're very soul-led, very heart-led. Making money and being spiritual. Did you have any challenges with that in charging for your gifts and sort of overcoming that? But I'm helping people and I'm healing, so I should probably just do this for free.
It is the absolute biggest block I had was accepting money for something that's divine. To me, it's so sacred. It's so divine. There was a couple of things. Firstly, I remember a teacher somewhere saying, if you don't charge, you're not going to be able to do it. And then the world won't have it. And that is the bottom line. If you don't charge for this, it's a side piece that will never really get out in the world. And then your light is missing for the world. And it's so, so needed. Okay. But there's also balancing various sides of ourselves. When I worked in corporate, my masculine side was full on. That's where I worked. That's what I brought to the table every day. I rarely used my intuition or any of that side of it. And then when I went into this, I absolutely flipped over and did all the feminine side, but I dropped the masculine. You need both of them to run a business, because the feminine will guide you. It'll bring the intuition and all the creativity and the ideas and all that magic will come in on that soft, gentle, quiet side that you find when you're meditating. But you need the action and the pushing out in the world of the masculine to balance that side and take your gifts to the world. Now, I think masculine and feminine are kind of older terms anyway, because it seems to have evolved past that. But it's bringing those parts of yourself together. And there is a tendency, if you have worked a lot in a very kind of masculine type field, to almost turn it off and I turned it off to allow the feminine to blossom, which at the time was the correct. But I didn't bring it back in for a long time, which meant I couldn't bring my business out into the world. So it's bringing all those pieces together. And again, that's just sitting with it and just feeling the energy of intuition, but then feeling the energy of action. They're very different energies, and you can find them within and let them spark. Yeah.
And that's so, so important because, you know, being in the online space myself, I see a lot of things that ruffle my feathers about, you know, just have baths and relax and meditate all the time and the money will come. And it's like, that's a lovely idea, but that's not going to work. But equally, I'm not a big believer in, you know, hustle 70 hours a week and just work until you collapse, and that will also get you success. I'm like, no, because you'll probably, you know, burn out, and then what's the point? So it is, and I think a lot of women have that struggle between the two, because especially if you've been in corporate, it's just like, well, we've been in a man's world and we have worked as men have worked. And, you know, the fluffy intuition and all that sort of stuff has been so shut down for so long. It's quite a blending mishmash at the beginning, isn't it?
It is. And it takes a while. I really did need that time to let the intuition and that softness to come back in. But if I don't take the action, then it's not getting anywhere. It's blending the two of them together. Yes, I can say I know this is going to be successful, and I can use the power of my mind and all of that. But then Spirit will say, okay, this is the steps you need to do to take this. And that's sometimes what's missing is people are visualizing, people are really knowing that this is what they're meant to do, but you have to go towards it. It doesn't always come towards you. So, and all you have to do is use your intuition and say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to bring to the world. I want this workshop. And I want it filled, and I want the perfect people to come to it who will really benefit for it. And I'll benefit as well with the abundance. So show me what is my next best step to take. That's my favorite question. That's the question I ask in meditation time and time again, because it might be 2 months down the line. I don't need to know what step is in week 6 or week 7. I really don't, you know, and as a former project planner, that challenged me so much. I really wanted a plan from here to there. Whereas now I get the step for today, maybe for this week, or maybe a bigger step that I have to work towards. But that's what I'm working toward. And that's where the feminine and the masculine comes in. The feminine is showing you what's in front of you now, what needs to be done next, what do you need to step into? And then the masculine allows you to step in. So it's doing both. It's the intuition and the action together.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just scribbled down something I want to remember to ask you, because I know that's going to be poignant. But the question that popped into my head straight away is there any guidance you can give or anything you do to tell, because we've used the word intuition a lot. Our minds are so clever, aren't they? How do you tell the difference between your intuition and your fear? Because I know I've experienced it, and I've gone, oh, I told myself that was guidance, and I was like, nope, I was just scared.
Yes. And it's quite subtle, and it's very easy to mix up the two initially in the early stages, which is why practice is so, so important. So start asking questions that are easily answered, okay? And start to feel, what does yes feel like to me? And what does no feel like to me? And you'll have something that's unique. It may be a tingle, it may be a feeling, it may be emotion that pops straight forward. Some people will hear or see something, but there is a yes and a no for everyone. And that develops over time, and it gets cleaner the more you use it. It's another piece of that, building that muscle, because we can. And we can also ask, show me a sign that I heard right. And something will happen in the days or a couple of days ahead that will show you that, yes, that was really a yes, or no, that yes you thought was a yes was you taking the safer path because you were worried about the other path. So that's what I would do early on, is ask for a sign. Ask yourself to give you a sign of some sort to confirm what you heard as intuition. But that's a muscle. That's a big muscle that really develops over time.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, you know, I'm definitely still on that path, because I love to work. I can throw myself in. Anyone that's worked with me will know I'm like, let's do this. And it is very easy to, for me, certainly, less so with the business, but I think with the business side of things, I'm very attuned to that. I think you do, like you said, it is a muscle. And when you've been in business a while, you're like, right, okay. And you're right. I think what you said, which I think is really important for people to sort of really write down if they can, is learn what yes feels like. I do feel like intuition is more of a feel into something, whereas when I'm getting all like scared, my brain goes, it's all up here.
Yes, it is. It's very much in the body. And there's a meditation I take people through sometimes to try it, is to imagine there's two paths in front of you, be in the road, and put a choice on each path and walk them and see, well, 3 months down the line, how does that path feel? You don't need to know what it looks like, but how does it feel? And it may be joyful or it may be really constricted, and do the same on the other one. And 3 months down the line, which path, if I'm standing on it, feels it? It's just a visual thing to do, and put your body 3 months down the line on both of them. And you'll be amazed, because the feeling may be much stronger when you're further along in a choice than in this now moment. So move outwards, see which one feels better.
Oh, that's amazing. That's gorgeous. I'm doing that for sure. Yeah. And going back to the masculine and feminine, which is interesting that you said, sort of old terms. I get a little ugh when I say the masculine and feminine, but I don't really know how else to explain it. The yin and the yang, maybe. Again, with when we sort of go into the feminine and when we go into the masculine, is there a way that you help your students discern between whether they are, again, maybe from a place of fear, slowing down because they're like, oh, I need to be in my feminine, when actually that's not the case? They need to sort of up the masculine side of things. And equally, how they discern between hustle mentality and embracing the masculine side of running a business, because it's a tricky balance at times.
It's a tricky balance. My starting point is the intuition. Sometimes I'll have a big plan for the day and I won't be able to get going. I'll feel restless in the morning and I just won't feel right. And when I sit down, I get into meditation and I ask, what's the step? Why isn't anything working today? And I hear deeply, it's a rest day. There's something brewing. It's a rest day. And I've had to pull back on times when I wanted to do something, but it was a rest day, because we're continuously up-leveling, especially with the energies in the world at the moment. They're so high. There's so much light pouring in for everyone that we need more rest. So it's important to honor that part that sometimes says, okay, pull back. You need to pull back. Even for today, you can get going again tomorrow. And tomorrow will flow so much easier, because I've ignored that pullback intuition and nothing works. It's like trawling through mud, trying to get anything done when it's not the right time. And the same thing, it's asking, well, what am I meant to be doing today? Some days I'd think, oh, I'd love to just sit in front of the telly, do nothing today. And it's a definite no on that. So I start with the intuition, and then if there's an action to be taken, and I know there's an action to be taken and I'm not taking it, because there's plenty of times we have action to take and we just find anything. We'll do the laundry rather than sit down and do this. I obviously don't like laundry, so that's why I put that one as the one other than anything else. And then I start looking at, well, why don't I want to do it? And usually then I'm hitting a fear, or I'm hitting a block, or there's something not sitting right, or maybe I'm doing it slightly out of alignment or something. So there is a big intuitive piece here as well. Do I need to pull back? That's the first one. You need to pull back sometimes on this path and take a breather, even if it's only for a couple of hours, or go for a walk. The other thing is, if I know, and I know there's action needed and I'm not taking it, then why? What's blocking me? What do I feel when I think of taking that action today? And it might be a fear. I might be sending an email that I don't quite want to send, but I know it's going to open up something for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the spirit team and the oak tree analogy, I absolutely love. For you, is it angels? Do you have goddesses? Are there, because I work with a lovely lady who very clearly she's like, yep, Isis popped in today and this was her message for me. And I'm like, that's amazing. So for you, is it like that, or is it something different? I
tend to work across the spectrum. I started with angels, and that's usually where I start with people, because it's an easy starting point for people. But for myself, I work with the goddesses, I work with the ascended masters, I work with the star, I work with the galactic and the cosmic energies, I work with the dragons and the unicorns. I mean, I literally just go across the realms of light. I would work with anyone who shows up is quite welcome.
I love that so much. That's amazing. So really, just for those listening, don't try and force this, I suppose. Would you say don't try and connect with a particular goddess? Don't try and connect with a particular angel? Or sort of how would you sort of say they start?
Where I started, and what I find is an easy starting point for people, is start with your guardian angel, because that's a primary connection just for you. Okay. And if you start there, it will expand. You can ask your guardian angel to bring in other angels or other guides. We have a lot of guides, and not all of them are angelic. We've guides that were ascended masters. We've guides that were ancestors. So we have guides along the spectrum, but start with one. If you haven't done any of this before, start with a guardian angel. Okay. That's a lovely starting point for a guide. And let it expand from there, because your guardian angel will bring them in when you're ready, one by one. The other thing is to try out a couple of meditations. You know, there's so many on people's sites and YouTube. I mean, I've loads of free ones on my website. There's loads on YouTube. And see what feels right. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. For example, what I mean by that is I hadn't heard of dragons as spiritual beings. I'd only seen them in the movies as, you know, the ones to be slayed. I was outside my realm of knowledge until someone guided me through a meditation. I was going, oh my gosh. And I have a real primary connection with them, but I didn't know that they were anywhere on the spectrum. So sometimes it's trial and error. You do, that didn't really sit with me, or it didn't make me feel really soft and loved and nourished, and another one will. So just practice, but start with your guardian angel if you're doing it for the first time.
Amazing. So they would just, when you say guardian angel, that's all they need to think of? Guardian angel, they don't need to.
Yeah.
I just know that someone, I can just think, there's a few clients and I'm like, they're going to Google, like, who's my guardian angel? Who do I need to ask?
Yeah. No, and I mean, there is millions probably of meet your guardian angel in meditations out there. Just get quiet, put on nice music. I like to put soft, gentle music in the background. Get nice and quiet and just say, guardian angel, be with me, please. And the first day you may notice nothing. And the second day, maybe not more. But if you do that and sit with it and just say, be with me, you feel something in your body. There's a love. I sometimes say, just wrap your wings around me because I'm having a tough day. And you can feel that hug after a while. The other thing is, leave me a sign. At the start, I used to love to get those little white feathers, and I used to get them everywhere. If I asked for a sign, I got a white feather within 24 hours. Some people get pennies. People have their own way that they like to receive signs. But ask for a sign if you're not sure that you've called in your guardian angel and you're not quite sure if she's or he's there at all. Just ask for a sign, and that'll come some way or the other. Yeah.
And it's so true. And I really think for those that are listening that, you know, maybe this is the first time they've sort of dived into this, we've taken them on a bit of a deep dive with it. But you know, the signs, I know I was always quite skeptical. It's like white feather malarkey. I was like, really? But I do remember again going for a run. I just separated from my husband, and I was asking, like, what do I do? I'd made a decision. I thought in my head, I was like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? And I kid you not, it was like slow motion. I was running and straight in front of me, this white feather just went straight down. As I was like, is this the right thing? They're like, yes, it is. I was like, okay, that's crazy.
It is. And at the start, because I was a skeptic, some people knew from the time they could toddle that they were going to do this type of work. And a lot of the people I work with were in that field. But I didn't even know about angels. I knew a guardian angel from a religious perspective in the religion I grew up with. But I didn't know that this was even available. It just was beyond my comprehension. Again, it's those one thing that I didn't know that I didn't know. So it just wasn't on my radar, which is why the challenge at the start for me was just getting past my kind of scientific skeptical. And as you know, I'd read something, I go, come on now, that's just a bit too much for me now. Whereas now I'd look at it and go, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to get past that little bit of skepticism as well. slowly. Again, just do things slowly. That would be, if I could go back and tell myself starting this journey, that would be my primary piece of guidance, is just go slowly. There's no rush,
Absolutely. And there's just one last question before we sort of wrap this up and let everyone know how they can dive into this more. How did you manage that transition in terms of, you talked about the judgment you had on yourself, and you've just mentioned, you've had the skepticism of like, what on earth? Like, this is a little bit too far. You've explained how you sort of, overcame this for yourself, but how did you manage with other people, sort of family, friends? You mentioned you grew up in a sort of a traditional religious set as well. Yeah. How did you manage that? And what does that look like for you?
At the start, once I got past the skepticism from my personal point of view, I wanted to share this with everyone. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It was kind of, this is so amazing. I wanted everyone I loved to have this as well, to have this connection. I was going, there's all this, and there's so much more than we ever knew, and do this. And of course, they had no interest because it wasn't their journey at all. So the first thing I would do is say, leave your family and friends alone. Okay. It's your journey. You can have a belief that your family doesn't have. And at the time, I felt unaccepted because I felt they were rejecting me because they were rejecting what I believe. And that's not true. They wanted to have their own beliefs. I was actually the one trying to enforce my beliefs on them and not allowing them. So it's about acceptance in both ways, as in you allow the people around you to have their own beliefs. They're as entitled to it as you are. And also just allow yourself to have your own beliefs. It's not that you can't have them, it's that you stand solid in them without the need to force them on anyone else. The one thing I will say over time is I build up a new tribe. I have my family, I'm deeply connected to them, and I have all my friends that I used to have, but I also have a new tribe where this part of me is shared fully and openly, and they just turn up as you're moving further and further along, and as you sit more in yourself. And I think there's a vibration you emit that brings the people towards you that are a match for where you are in your life.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm sure, I can definitely resonate with it. At the very beginning, I was like, people were so sick of me sending them Audible book links. I'm like, oh my goodness, listen to this. This will change your life. This is amazing. Or, someone would come to me with a problem. I'm like, wait, I have the solution. I was like, do this, do that, do that. And then like, what is this woman on about?
We all do it at the start. There's such a wanting to share the good.
Yeah.
But not understanding that the good is for our journey. And they have the perfect right journey for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I could honestly, I'm having to keep another time because I could speak to you for hours about all these things. I might have to have you back at a later date. How can the listeners connect with you, find out about more what you do, and access all these amazing meditations?
Well, I'm on Facebook on Joan Buckley Light, all one word. And if you're a beginner, that's very soft and gentle. I put out angel prayers as in, dearest angel, help me with this today. Thank you. As simple as that. So there's lots of those posts for getting used to calling in your angels and asking them for stuff. And there's lots of other bits on there as well. So that's my Facebook page. Online, I'm on joanbuckley.com. And if you go under the free section, there's a lot of freebies in there. I think if you're starting out, there's an Archangel Raphael healing meditation. That's a lovely, soft, gentle place to start. But there's lots of other stuff there. And there's links to all the Facebook Lives I've done over the last couple of years. So they're the two primary places just to get a feel for what I do. My main offering at the moment is the Celestial Club membership program. And that takes you on a more deep dive. We have a live every month, which helps you understand what's the month about for you, or it might be healing, it might be clearing, it might be what's my next step. You go deep in and ask that question. And then we have guided meditation and we have a healing session. Now, the healing is very important in the Celestial Club because, as I mentioned before, when we take the steps from the live and the guided meditation, there's stuff rises, there's fear rises. And that healing session is particularly to clear anything that's rising that month so that you can step forward easier. So that is the primary one. And it's my real baby is the Celestial Club membership program to spread connection around the world. It really is to learn to live in divine partnership is the tagline, and it's to learn to live with your spiritual team. We were never, ever meant to do it alone. And we've been taught that we're supposed to do it alone and rely on other humans for all our information, but we were never, ever meant to do it alone. It was always meant to be a big collaboration between all of that oak tree. And that's what I'm trying to bring through in Celestial Club, because it's not just angels. Some months it could be star families we're connecting to, or dragons, unicorns. It could be anything.
Yeah, I love it. And the fact that you've mentioned unicorns, I'm actually going to have to Google that as well, because my child is obsessed and I don't see it ever stopping. And he's always known, he's just like, he's connected to the divine on all levels, I know already. And I'm just like, let's just make sure that's nurtured, shall we?
Yes, and they have such a pure frequency. The unicorns, it's interesting, they have such a pure soul frequency. People who generally have a deep connection to the unicorns have quite a significant soul purpose. They're going to do something for humanity rather than something for themselves. They have a very big purpose.
So goosebumps, exciting. Like I said, I may have to have you on a whole other dragon unicorn conversation.
Yeah, love it.
It has been beyond a pleasure. I cannot even believe that the time has flown so fast. I feel like it's been 5 minutes. I really hope everyone has enjoyed listening to this. Do connect with Joan. She's just, I cannot even tell you the energy that's coming through my Zoom screen. It's ridiculous right now. So do connect with her. Check out the Celestial Club, check out the meditations. And Joan, it's just been a pleasure, and I look forward to welcoming you back another time.
Oh, it was wonderful. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, any resources and links mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would be so grateful if you would kindly share, subscribe, and leave a positive review so that the podcast can help and reach as many people as possible. Thank you again for listening. Have a gorgeous day, and I'll see you in the next episode.